hold my hand. Fall in love with footprints in the sand, and kiss each other while we watch the band. And everyone who knows us understands we're meant to be. And if you lie with me under the sycamore
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's City of Cedar Falls regular City Council meeting for Monday, February 2nd. I will now call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Schultz. Latta.
Here.
Nagel.
Here.
Hallbaker.
Here.
Fairbanks.
Here.
Chrisman. Here. Dunn. Here. Councilmember Schultz, absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And if willing and able, could everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everyone. Now look for a motion to approve the meeting minutes of January 20th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion from council? Seeing none, any from the public? Also seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Madam Clerk, any agenda revisions?
I have no agenda revisions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And then quick before we go to the public forum, we do have a special presentation this evening. Denny, if you can hear us, could you please make your way to the foyer, or excuse me, to the chambers? We're going to have an awkward wait here for a second. For those of you who don't know Denny, Denny has spent 2 decades of service here at the city, and he's often the voice that you hear over the speakers and the person controlling. There's Denny.
He doesn't have to come in that door.
We do have some technical difficulties. Fortunately, you've been here too long. That we get the honor of bestowing you with your 20-year pin. And I don't know if you've seen 20 years, you get the red ruby. Get that one.
That's my favorite.
So one, and we got some of your team here, and just wanted to take a minute to say appreciations for everything you do behind the scenes and for making sure we look good.
Thank you.
Some of us.
You're welcome.
More than Kim does, because she makes me look bad in the pictures she puts on the screen. But so again, appreciate everything you do. And before you leave, also, if you could come up, Mike. We also have another special presentation, which I would invite Jeremy to come join us as well, but there's a very strong chance, Jeremy, you should come out here too. You might just ignore me. If anyone knows Jeremy, my title has no authority over him to do anything, so we're going to give it a second.
But it will be on your review if you don't come out.
It'll be on your employee review, which is happening currently. Oh, look at that. There he is. And so I'll let...
You really don't like to be on TV. Okay. I'm going to read this because otherwise, nope.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I was just thinking like a director here.
At least it's not my backside, I guess. Okay, I know you guys just heard from me, but in addition to some exciting things I just shared, I want to share one more thing. Every year at Community Main Street, we have chosen a Volunteer of the Year. This award highlights individuals or groups who have gone above and beyond for Community Main Street. In looking over the list from the last 38 years, it is comprised of a remarkable group of humans who have worked tirelessly to make sure downtown Cedar Falls is a place everyone wants to visit and call home. Many of those who have been recognized are still volunteering today, and some of them are in the room. The Volunteer of the Year is typically a person who shows up again and again, and not when they have to, but because they want to. Our Volunteers of the Year are often the ones who are pouring their creativity, blood, sweat, and tears into this amazing place, and they are going above and beyond the duties of their day jobs and donating time to the efforts that are happening in the downtown district. Our Volunteers of the Year are considered significant program partners, and this year that is 100% the case. So today, it is with great pride that I announce the 2026 Volunteers of the Year are Denny, Jeremy, and Mike, our friends with Channel 15. And yes, they also know me well enough that I probably won't get through it without tears. However, in my almost 10 years working at Community Main Street, I've had the great privilege to work with every one of you at Channel 15. I have watched as they have captured moments of pure magic and turned them into memories I will keep forever. When the Who Herd is working behind the scenes, we don't always get to see the magic happening in real time. the season recap that Channel 15 puts together each year of Holiday Hoopla gives us a chance to relive it. And we're so thankful to the Channel 15 crew for capturing those moments for all of us. It isn't just Hoopla that experiences their gifts, but all the special things that happen in downtown have been touched by Channel 15. So to Mike, who can always get an interview during an event, no matter how tired or sweaty or cold people are. He loves to hop around downtown with his buddy, Buddy the Elf, capturing all the fun and also putting together fun videos highlighting our beloved Flower Brigade because you know it is a heartwarming story. To Jeremy, just want to say thank you for everything you do behind the scenes and off camera. A lot of it goes unnoticed, but it makes a real difference. And more than anything, we appreciate how you always make Santa look so good on camera during the arrival. Did you know, this is a fun fact, that Denny will reshoot something in the event that you use your maiden name 5 minutes into taping? I did that one year and had been married for 20 when it happened. I appreciate every time I have cried on camera and you haven't used it. I don't know that there is an event that I go to that you aren't there. From downtown to Cedar Falls Athletics and everything in between, you are a true Cedar Falls gem. Also giving Shelby a shout out because she knows how to wrangle our breakfast at the North Pole chair during breakfast, and fun fact, she can make an incredible ugly Christmas sweater. In writing this up for today, I took a trip down memory lane and pulled up the Channel 15 YouTube channel, and I would encourage anyone to do the same because what they provide to our community, is truly unmatched. The moments they've captured and the videos created are a living history of our community, something we're grateful to have and not every community is afforded. Mike, Jeremy, and Denny, you will be recognized later this month at our Volunteer Appreciation Party, as well as at the Main Street Iowa Awards in May. Our sincere gratitude to you, our 2026 Volunteers of the Year.
I think we got it. Did you guys want to get up here with?
Let's step to the side here.
You guys can
All right, now get back to work then.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for letting us do that. Did I lose my writing utensil? Nope, it's in my pocket. We're good. All right, we'll give Denny a second. He's probably going to take a second out there, but we'll get moving here with just actually, since we're going to do public forum, we'll give just 1 second. Actually, they might be running the...
I think you're good.
I think we're good. We're good. All right, so with that, thank you, everybody, and we will move on to public forum. So speakers will have up to one opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics relevant to city business. If it's an item that's on the agenda later in the meeting, you can wait for that time to speak for that item. Otherwise, any other public comment this evening? All right, seeing none, that will move us to staff updates. Excuse me. Oh, go ahead. Just name and address, please.
Kim Jordan, Cedar Falls. I was going through what we had set up to really focus on over the next year or so, and looking at everything that we've got in our arsenal of projects and things that we've accomplished. Probably the biggest thing of Cedar Falls, growing up here, the thing that's bringing people into the community is the health and wealth. And we've donated monies out of the Sartori Trust for programs for those specific uses. We've got property that we've purchased over on Green Hill Road back in 2016. And if it's anything like what we had paid for the high school property, which back then was 1.24 million for 50 acres. I think what we need to have the community do is kind of look at what we rebought that for. I'm not going to give an answer as to what that amount was right now, because I hope that there's interest within the community as to what we already have. Because in those same notes that we went through when we were deciding on what's important for this next year, we started taking a look at moving forward with the Hearst, which is great because it's cultural, it brings things in. There was mention about the mall, and that's affecting youth, it's affecting the aging population, it's affecting the parks and recreation. Everything that brings people in is somehow, some way going to need to cross through our healthcare system and our hospital. We already have a hospital. One of the things in our minutes is kind of trying to reduce redundancy. And I understand that this has been going on since 1996 when we were coming up with a plan for the future parts of health. And we never, ever anticipated COVID. But one thing that we've always managed to do is try to cut expenses and to make people not go through overtime. And it doesn't matter if it's in public safety or how that crosses into healthcare. But we're looking at probably downgrading the one thing that truly makes us who we are, the one thing that we could market and get a better healthcare system in, one that will bring in people that they feel like they're going to stand behind them. They're not going to put more jobs onto them and require more hours, yet upper management never is going to come through the door and understand exactly what they're doing. And this is not just like our city, but if we understand how we're doing so much reverse progressive movement just with not maintaining what we already have. And when I look at this purchase agreement, it's got Sartori Memorial Hospital, 3421 West 9th Street, Waterloo, as the deed and then the mail to. I'm really happy to see that Sartori's name is still on that. However, it's not on our health trust fund, and it's not really associated with the 515 College Street because we have a Sartori Foundation Board and we have a Sartori Board. In the minute, or in the portfolio here, it's talking about kind of the goal setting towards College Hill and how we can mesh it with downtown. We're not mentioning at all the healthcare system. Again, we have a beautiful park ground up there that could be displayed with different things that people come in. We are addressing different affordability and infill. We're not really looking at where those people are going to be going for healthcare. We're updating zoning and codes, yet we're not enforcing the parking and the driveway from the emergency room entrance off of 4th Street. That is just a pit to go through. We have 20 beds there right now. They're going to be building 6 to 8 beds on Green Hill Road. So again, just like the high school, we are going to be having a larger space, but we're building it smaller.
That is time, Mr. Rodriguez. Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment this evening? All right, seeing none, we will close the public forum and move on to staff updates, which I believe we do not have any unless anything came up later in the day. Okay, nothing there. That moves us to special order of business. Item number 2, public hearing to consider entering into an agreement for private development with River Place Properties 2, LC. Do we have a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Madam Clerk, any written communications?
Yes, written communication has been placed in front of the council tonight.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And that moves us to staff comments with Shane Graham. Thank you, Shane.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff has been working with River Place Properties 2 for the past approximately 6 to 9 months towards the construction of a new 4-story multi-use building located at the corner of 3rd Street and State Street in downtown Cedar Falls. That parcel is currently vacant as it's historically been used as a parking lot for the adjacent property. The developer is ready now to proceed with the project, which will include 1 floor of commercial space on the 1st floor and 3 floors of residential space on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th floor. The 1st floor commercial space is approximately 4,700 square feet, and there will be 18 residential dwelling units on the 2nd through the 4th floors. Of those 18 dwelling units, 17 will be 2-bedroom, and there will be one 1-bedroom unit. The property will also include 29 parking stalls on site, of which 20 of the parking stalls would be located enclosed underneath the building, and 9 stalls would be located above the on the ground level behind the building. And then also there will be 9 shared parking stalls that are designated on property that the developer also owns behind 300 State Street. The site plan for this building was reviewed and approved by the Planning Division, which does review site plans in the Downtown Character District. Construction is anticipated to begin this spring with completion in 2027. For the financial assistance request, this project is eligible under the Downtown Urban Renewal Plan for consideration of incentives. The typical incentive offered for downtown projects is a tax rebate of 100% of the tax increments on the increased valuation of the property for a period of 10 years. After the project is complete, the property will have a minimum assessed valuation of $8,376,460. For this project, the developer is requesting an incentive that is outside of the typical incentive request that we typically see. Instead of the 10-year tax rebate on the increased valuation of the project, the developer is requesting a one-time payment of $950,000 in the form of a forgivable loan, which would be paid after completion and final inspection of the building. The forgivable loan does consider a repayment obligation by the developer over the 10-year period, subject to a 4% interest rate, which would result in a total repayment by the developer of $1,242,143.10. If for any reason, or the loan would be forgiven after that 10-year period under the condition that the property does generate that at minimum $1,242,000 in tax increment. If for any reason the city does not collect that amount of tax increment, the developer would then be obligated to repay that balance of that portion. So in considering this form of incentive compared to what the city's typical 10-year tax rebate is, staff's estimated that the yearly tax rebate on this property, using that $8,376,000 assessed valuation, based on the 1st floor commercial and the 3 floors being taxed as residential, the estimated yearly tax rebate for this property would be approximately $146,000. That's just based on today's tax rate and today's valuation. Taking that yearly figure then and multiplying it by 10 years, that total rebate amount owed to the developer under our typical configuration would be approximately $1,460,000. So in this scenario that's being contemplated today that the developer is requesting, there would appear to be a savings from the city of approximately $510,000 in tax revenue over that 10-year period if the city were to choose to approve the one-time payment option instead of the typical 10-year tax rebate option. A copy of the agreement is included in the packet, which does explain the loan and all the other repayment obligations. Again, the project will have a minimum assessment of $8,376,460 with, again, project commencing here this spring and being completed in 27. With that, if the project does get completed in 27, it would have its full assessment in January of 2028, which means we wouldn't collect tax increment on that until 2030. So a little ways out for that. That's how the taxes all work, but that's kind of the schedule laid out, and a lot of that is contemplated within the development agreement. So, and I'm available for any questions if you have them, if there's anything else the mayor wants to add.
Yep, and so just since this is a very different deal than our standard, I just wanted to kind of help give some background to it. One, for us, but I think also for the community looking at this. We heard some concerns from a few messages we got, talked with a few of you. Second, a few things that Shane already said. One, protection built into this was because there was concern of, okay, if we pay it all up front, does something happen during construction? And now we're on the hook for the building getting finished. And that's why nothing would be paid until the building is complete and it has certificate of occupancy, so it's essentially a taxable asset at that point. The big thing is, though, is, as you can see, Denny, if you can pull that scheduled payments back up. The far right on this is our standard this is a cash flow, is our standard 10-year rebate. There really is no cash flow. They pay their taxes and we rebate it every year. So that column, the proposed upfront payment, is really kind of how the cash flow works on this, where we're giving that upfront payment of $950,000, and then rather than rebating their payment, we're collecting the taxes every year. So essentially then over that 10-year, that $950 gets paid back, and then you can see we come out compared to the 10-year ahead by about $510,000. And this has been kind of an ongoing conversation with the developer to try and work through this, because you can see this gets more complicated than what our standard just 10-year is, because essentially it's 10 years. We just rebate what they're paid. There's not a lot of complexity to that. So one, we wanted to take some time, and we can talk more once we actually get to the discussion period, but wanted to just kind of help illustrate that, but then also talk through if there's any questions, clarifications you wanted on kind of how that's going to work. And then I think from looking at this, originally, I know the developer, I think, spoke with us about, like I said, 8-9 months ago. Some of the presentation was looking at for what our downtown's parking requirements are, with this being a landlocked site, in order to provide the required parking, which this project does meet all of our current parking requirements, which, Director Sheets, correct me if I get this wrong, is 0.75 spots per bedroom plus 0.25 spots per bedroom for the shared parking. So about 1 spot per bedroom. I believe that original request was based around, in order to get that much parking and make the project feasible, that's where this request came from. Not saying it's right or wrong, but that was the origination of this discussion. So we've gone back and forth with the developer to kind of look at the amount paid up front, to see if it's a good deal for us as a city financially over that time period, but then also a discussion for us once we get here to the actual discussion is that policy decision of, are we willing to move forward with a agreement like this? So I did want to say, just because this question came up, that 4% interest rate, that's really just to calculate a minimum payment. What we should actually collect in property taxes, if everything goes like you would expect to with the property taxes, we'd collect a lot more than that. That was put in there more as a safety mechanism, so that if for some reason something changed with property taxes, with valuations, that we at least know we're going to get a 4% interest rate on the money. So there's a minimum floor on what the developer would be required to pay, regardless of what happens with property taxes. But again, and if you look at that scheduled payments, that really assumes the same $146,000 every year. Most of us know our property values go up every year, and so that number would probably be higher, but we just wanted to calculate it based on that estimation. So otherwise, at this point, any just clarifying questions for understanding, either for us or if there's things you heard for concerns from residents, community members that we can help get answers to?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Are we supposed to have, when there was asked if there was any written communication, it said there had been something placed in front of us? Sorry. Okay.
And it was the email that got sent to everybody. We just made sure to include it in the packet in case anybody else wanted to see it. So any clarifying questions, thoughts from council?
Just,
Yeah, go ahead.
Shane, there was a couple things got brought up. One is with the letter that got submitted. I think there's some confusion, as it was for me, about the 4% rate. And a bank typically would probably be in the 7% range. I think for me, I was upset with that, and so were some other people. But the real issue is that it doesn't really matter if it's all paid off and nothing happens. It's all forgivable, so it doesn't really make any difference. So that was just one clarifying thing. And then I did have one additional question about the parking standards. Some of it's in, some of the parking is qualifying to be across the owner's property to a different development. If something would happen to that building, how would that be? How would those parking stalls be tied into this project if it would get sold or whatever might happen? And that's all I had. Thanks.
All right, thank you. The parking question, I'm probably going to defer over to either Karen or, because that one's kind of over my head. I know they reviewed the site plan and it conforms with all of our current parking codes, but.
Yeah, I'm sure it's fine. It's just a question.
So the only parking that's on the other site is the shared parking, which is then basically public parking. So they're adding another 9 spaces of publicly available parking on the River Place site. They'll have to sign it as publicly available parking. So the shared parking is different. All the required parking is actually on the site of the development.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Karen. Any other clarifying questions from council at this time? All right.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I have a question. Under the obligations, Shane, and maybe this is a question better for Mr. Rogers here, but we are under no obligation. Say the building gets built, okay, under this contract as I read it. And it's 20, whatever. And there's a certificate of completion. And the city council at that time says, we're not going to fund it. We can do that. Right?
We'll ask Kevin for that.
Just a clarifying question on my part. We're not going to fund what? Because the money's been paid, so the forgivable loan amount has been issued.
The money's not paid until the building is completed.
Right.
And the escape clauses, and the city shall have no obligation to pay the principal loan amount, okay, the $950,000, to developer if at any time during the term hereof, the city fails to appropriate funds for payment.
Yes.
So the council, he completes it. Presumably, it would soon trigger our obligation to pay the $950. We vote no.
Prior to certificate of completion being granted?
Or it comes to us and says, you now owe me the $950,000, okay, because I've performed under the contract.
Right.
As I read it, there's an escape hatch, because we don't want to make it look like we're incurring indebtedness or anything like that, that says if the city fails to appropriate funds for payment.
Right.
That's us saying, we're just not going to pay it.
The part I'm not following is the payment's already been made. So if you're saying the city reneges on its agreement under this development agreement during the course of construction?
Because the $950,
Yes.
the payment, the safety valve that the mayor talked about is, so, obviously risk is a problem I have with this agreement. The safety valve is, look, the building gets built before we pay the $950.
Right.
Okay.
So if for some reason it doesn't, then that, excuse me, there'd have to be formal action by council saying you didn't fulfill your agreement to build this building, you're not getting the $950. Is that where you're going with it?
Well, my point is that in a reasonable world, I don't disagree with you. Presumably the council would say you didn't perform or something like that because we're under the terms of the contract. But when this kind of smells like an illusory contract to me, we're not compelled to do anything if we vote to say we don't have the funds.
Here, can I try to clarify quick? I think he's asking, the way he reads section 8.
Under the forgivable loan, sorry.
8.3b is that we will have to approve that payment once certificate of completion is done, and that we have the option to say no at that point. I don't believe that's true, because I'm also trying to read this as notwithstanding the provisions of section 8.1, and I was trying to look at.
Right. Notwithstanding those, we can get out. So my fear is ultimately, I have a lot of fears about this, but that was the first thing that jumped out at me.
I think the out clause you're talking about, first of all, it should never come into play. If there's a casualty loss of some kind, insurance proceeds, the agreement requires that all insurance proceeds be placed into rebuild or completion of building. So the scenario you're saying would have to take place between the time this agreement is approved, if it is approved, and completion of construction. You're saying that the city could just say, yeah, we decided not to fund this.
Right, I mean, and there's, I mean, that, it's just not honoring the agreement, obviously, that looks bad, and you wouldn't expect us to do that. But here's my point, really, this is the reason for the question is, if it's an illusory contract and we have a problem or a failure of consideration of it, and we do have problems with this agreement, one party or the other would have an argument that it wasn't actually a contract, if that's how it operated.
An illusory contract can be voided, correct?
Yeah, so that's the only point. That's the concern I have about that language. That's why I had the question about it, so.
For those of us that don't have a lawyer degree, can one of you recap that for us?
Yeah, I'll do it because it's my concern. It's not fair to have Attorney Rogers do that. So my concern is that, and I understand why there's a lot of language in here that basically says we're not, if X happens, we're not obligated. That's true for the developer too, right? And we also put back deadlines depending on what happens. But my concern about that language in the contract is that contracts are offer and acceptance and consideration. The consideration is you're obligated to do something if I perform, I'm obligated to do something if you perform. Developer builds the building, we're obligated to pay the money. That's the triggering event. We're not obligated to pay the money with that escape language, in my opinion, or at least it can be read that way. And if that obligation, if the certificate of completion comes up, they get asked for the $950 because we feel safe, the building's built, $950,000, and we have a terrible budget season or something unforeseeable, which is why you do the contracts in the first place, happens, we could just walk away and not appropriate the $950, and that's an escape clause for us in there. And so if there's a failure of that consideration, then it's not in law a contract, and then we would move to equitable things. It just gets messy.
Well, if I could ask Attorney Rogers quick, 2 questions. One, I don't believe that was the intent of this contract, was to give us that out. Like, I believe it's intended that if they perform, they build the building, certificate of completion, we are obligated to pay the amount. That's part of the agreement. So the intent, I believe, is to make sure if they perform, we make the payment. That shouldn't have to be approved separately. Now, separate question is that how this reads, or do we need to review that language?
It's, this escape language is in every DA you'll ever see come across your desk. And so I think the intent of it is if some unforeseen circumstance arises and council decides that the developer either hasn't or isn't attempting a goodwill to perform, council could choose not to pay. It's the ultimate escape. If our other escape language doesn't work, this is the final escape.
Just as you said, council member, it's just a very bad look if we
No, I don't disagree. I just, you know, there are other concerns I have about this, but that's for discussion, not for questions.
Okay.
I was just going to echo, Kevin just took it right out of my mouth, is that all of our DAs have annual appropriation language, even if it's a yearly annual rebate.
No, understood.
And I just want to add into that why that's in there, for everyone's benefit, why that's in there is that if that wasn't in there, all of our rebate agreements would have to go against our long-term debt obligation, our general obligation debt. But if you annually appropriate it, only the annual amounts count towards our debt limit cap. Now, I understand for Cedar Falls, we're not even close to our debt limit cap, but for cities who are, that's why most TIF agreements always have that annual appropriation language in them.
Thank you, Director. Any additional clarifying questions, comments at this point? All right, seeing none, then we will move to public comments. Would anyone from the public like to speak this evening? Name and address, please.
Darrell Cruz from the lovely city of Cedar Falls. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, council, people at home, staff. One of the concerns I have, again, is the parking. Okay. To Councilor Fairbanks' point, if the property is sold and separated, that remote parking, I'll call it, has to be attached to the whatever building is sold, or the new building we're having here. The character districts and the form-based zoning that we debated while I sat up there for 8 years stated that a total of 1 spot per bedroom is provided by the developer. 0.75 is basically private parking for the people in the building, and 0.25 is shared. Most everybody should know this. We debated it extensively, except the new people who wouldn't be part of that. So there has to be a consideration for that, because you sell the new building. There is an encumbrance, I suppose is the right word. Maybe there's a different legal word than that, for those remote spots that are behind the 300 block building, okay? In addition to that, there already are 9 or 10 public spots back there. So there would be 18 spots that the public can use and need to be labeled as such. That is a significant thing. So there has to be consideration if the property is sold. Another point, the 300 block residents currently, on a regular basis, park in the street after 5 o'clock. There is no incentive for them to go behind the building and park in the parking lots that's built for them in the 300 block, because at 5:01, they come home from work, let's say. 3 hours later, the 8:01 or 8 o'clock, the parking enforcement stops, and it's a 3-hour zone. So they can come home from work, any of these people in these buildings, park in the street at 5:01 and fill the street full or use up what should be the retail customers' parking. I've had complaints about that when I was sitting up there. I'm just reiterating that for the new people. So there has to be some consideration to change your downtown parking parameters, timeframes, to push the people back into their spots where they're supposed to be. There's people that have a spot in the building of any of these buildings, and they come home for work, and why should I maneuver inside of the building and park? Why don't I just park in the street? There's a spot there, I'm going to grab it real quick. So there has to be something done there. That's a significant thing. The other point worth mentioning, it's stated that this was done, reviewed by the planning division. That's not planning and zoning. That's an in-house, basically private deliberation of whether this works. You need to see, the public needs to see what's getting built in their downtown. You're giving public money, public TIF financing, creative financing, whatever you're doing, it's public money. The public needs to see what's happening. Case in point, we had the apartment building built there roughly across the street from St. Pat's, around 700 block, that a number of people in the public were quite upset building an apartment building right out to the street between 2 historic buildings. And that really upset a lot of people. I heard that during door knocking. And then I asked a lot of people, and many people are concerned. It kind of ruins the downtown. It's not historic when you got something jutting out into the street. So I think we need to have regular planning and zoning review of these projects so that the public can see what's going on. So I think I covered most of my points. One thing I'll throw out real quick. Many of you heard me say this before. There's 4,000 seats in the restaurants and bars downtown. If they're half full, that's 2,000 spots. If everybody comes 2 in a car, that's 1,000 cars. Street parking down there is about 800 cars or spots. So you're going to run short. The more retail you bring into this, that's not required to provide parking, you're going to fill the streets full. The current merchants are going to be upset. More and more of that parking is being taken away by residential. And if the residential component doesn't fully cover itself, you're going to have a problem. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Is there anyone else for public comment this evening? Just name, please.
Kim Jordan. going back to the goal-setting work program.
Ms. Jordan, this is specific to a
For-
development agreement.
For this, because it kind of brings back what you were talking about versus how we're moving forward with this in relation to parking and development and how it's going to give back to the community and affect all the taxpayers that are going to be coming down there when we're still going to be addressing the parking concern over and over and over again. And I mean, whether we talk about Mr. Kittrell putting this proposal before us right now, and we're looking at trying to return property tax base and generate the revenue for economic development. If we're looking at updating zoning and developmental codes, advancing housing and affordability with infill, this area doesn't really qualify that. But probably the biggest thing that's really wrong with it, and former council representative Cruz was mentioning the fact that we're endorsing the planned community growth, which protects the unique natural and historic features of Cedar Falls. It's also environmental, natural. We're going to be increasing the water flow that's going off. We are losing touch with really who that downtown is, and so often at Christmas we were looking at going, a couple friends going down there. A lot of my friends are in the aging community. Parking was the deterrent to go there. And that's sad because that generation has the wealth and they deserve the ability to go down after 6 or 7 o'clock at night and still feel like they're not going to be walking extreme distances away. When we also look at this, let's see, we've got an area that's going to be housing for a specific group of people. It's not going to be addressing the different housing infrastructures that we're looking at for the rest of the moving forward. And I also have a concern with the whole TIF districts because when we look at how we're already right now having to repay the debt to the city from the industrial park, if we're already paying this person forward, we're going to give tax incentives back. We're not addressing where we're at right now, but we're just pushing it off, and we're underutilizing the area. And it does make me go back into imagining how in 1914 we would have been looking at that whole downtown, and we would have had zoning setbacks, and everything would have been really filled with character. And right now, we can go right up to the sidewalk, and there's no visibility. There's a lot of things that we were doing very well back before when people were using bicycles, and we were trying to bring things downtown. But I don't think that we've considered looking at the future and the aging population and how we've got steps and then no parking, and looking at, I believe if we went back into time, we had a project there that was going to have parking on the top, and we decided not to have parking above or below. So we've had some opportunities that have been presented to the same builder, and it just looks like it's fast forward, it's going to cost more, we're going to give more back, and the whole community is getting less.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. Just name and address or affiliation, please.
Good evening, Taylor Morris with Eagle View Partners. Just wanted to say thank you for your consideration on this project. Shane mentioned we had 6 to 9 months working on this. The Eagle View team has been working on this now for about 3 years, and this is the 4th iteration of the design. This one fits the form-based code. It meets the parking requirement. Kim mentioned area underutilization. This is the opposite. It is maximizing the potential of that square lot that we have. Former Councilman Cruz mentioned the 300 building and parking alongside the street. A lot of those are not residents of the 300 building. There's 21 units there. We have 32 inside indoor parking spaces underneath that building. So it does happen, and it's a hard thing to enforce, but we are making an effort to work on that, and I think we have made that same effort in this building. Happy to answer any other questions if anybody has it. I'm not the project lead on this, but I can answer if I can. If I can't, I'll find the answer.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. And anyone else for public comment this evening? All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing and look for a motion on a resolution approving and authorizing execution of an agreement for private development with River Place Properties 2 LC.
So moved.
Second.
Motion seconded and open for discussion from council. And I'll say too, with Mr. Morris here, if you have any questions for developer, we can ask them to come speak as well.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
I'd make one comment on the whole situation about the agreements. The only thing that's different here from what we've been doing is this new agreement. It looks to benefit the city eventually, providing everything works out. And even though we have some complications about what it might look like, I assume that there's been consideration of that, and yes, we would like to see that. But however, if you drive by the lot that's been sitting there for a long time, for me, it would be better to do a project that they can do anyway. It's just a matter of how it's financed. So I'm in favor of it. I am concerned about the parking as always, but this is a far better solution than leaving it sit. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go
I
ahead.
appreciate the clarification on the 4% being the minimum floor for this, because I had similar pause saying, wow, probably could get a much higher rate than that. So that's comforting to know. And then it's also worth noting, just for the general public who haven't maybe looked at this plan, that the first floor of this is intended to be commercial, which is going to be taxed at a higher rate than what a residential for the top 3 floors is going to be. So ultimately, I mean, I do think while this is maybe different than any other agreement we've perhaps seen before, the ROI on this is great, and I don't think the risk is substantial. It's also worth noting this is really the only remaining developmental lot left in the downtown core. So having this kind of wrap up that area, I have less concern that has been brought to me on, oh, what precedent does this or does it set? I think this is the last one in that area. I think it makes sense to get this wrapped up, and I see a lot of value in this project. And again, the fact that we're looking at just over $500,000 in the positive for the city at the end of this makes sense to me. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. Other discussion, thoughts? If I can really quick, I did want to circle back to one of Mr. Cruz's questions, and it's kind of your question as well, Counselor. This might be Stephanie or Karen. If this building were to be sold, would those parking requirements then be required to carry over along with that? So they would have to work with, currently it's within the same developer, the shared spots, but they would have to work with either the same arrangement or someone else to make sure the same amount of spots remain in place.
Yes, the parking has to remain in place. The shared parking has to remain in place.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Karen.
I do have another question,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor. So I'm trying to wrap my head around this 4% is the floor, okay? The promissory note that's a condition of this agreement has an interest rate of 4% in it. So where's the floor part?
Yeah, so the 4% is really meant to say, over the 10 years, we have to have collected at least that amount of money. So we're not actually charging 4% interest. We just use 4% as a rate to calculate what would the estimated total amount be over the 10 years. Okay. So the intent is that if for some reason, say the state changed how they calculate property taxes and all of a sudden we're collecting less, we're at least going to make sure we get that amount. And that 4%, just for the public's sake and for council, our internal borrowing rate and kind of our bond rate, or our borrowing rate is about 4%. So that's if we were going to go borrow the money for this to do it, that's about what we would pay on it. So we at least wanted to make sure there's protection in there that if for some reason something changes with property tax valuations, with how they calculate property taxes, that we know we'll at least get that minimum amount. But that only really goes into effect if the total amount collected over the 10 years isn't more than that minimum amount. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying, yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep, go ahead.
Well, first, as long as we're talking about that, so is it an interest-free loan?
No, because they have to at least pay that minimum amount. So the worst case, or the minimum that they would pay over that 10 years, is the $950,000 plus for what calculated would be 4% interest over the 10 years, which comes out to, I don't have the number in front of me, but 1.2 some million.
But that's basically to cover any changes in our property tax.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Because the estimate is the current property valuation, they would pay about $146,000 a year. So over the 10 years, we expect to probably make at least 1.4 million. But we wanted to make sure we had that minimum in there just in case the state changed something or did something to mess with those valuations and how they collect it.
Okay. Okay. So I hope, I've been looking forward to this conversation with all of us because I'm trying to figure out, I'd like to feel better about the request and as to why we're giving special consideration for this one project, but we'll get to that. Let me first say what I have down here. So I have no problem with the project. The project itself, I mean, it makes me excited. I have no problem with the parking. I'm not concerned about a shortage of parking. I'm not against our current incentives. I've always been supportive of those current incentives. I've always been, I believe, open-minded to thinking outside the box, especially if I feel like it's for the betterment of the community as a whole, and as long as it's fair. So that's where I kind of start to hesitate here is what is, a lot of times I think like, okay, if somebody comes in the community and asks me, well, why did you support that? I want to be able to feel good about my answer. And, whether or not I support this or not, if someone comes and says, well, hey, I want to develop something, are you going to give me that same deal? And I understand, well, this is the last part of downtown. I can understand that. Kind of, but like our town isn't just downtown Cedar Falls. We have many areas in this town that need and deserve our support. So I guess what would we say? I'm just, maybe there's not an answer, but what would we say if someone says, hey, I want to develop, and you've done this for that person. We just redid our incentives, like, I don't know, less than maybe 2 years ago now, we redid our incentives and updated them. So I guess, what would our answer be? And then I guess we kind of answered, there's just so much uncertainty with our current tax, the way we collect property taxes, and we don't even know where that's going. The state doesn't even know where that's going. There's 4 different proposals. And I mean, they're really big changes. It's not like it's just a little bit, And then the way property valuation is always kind of an uncertainty. So there's just so much uncertainty, but I'll go back to, there's been times where I've been thinking that, whatever's proposed is not something I support. And there have been times in recent history where I've sat with my fellow council people and I've listened and I've changed my mind. So I'd like to know why we are considering this, so that if I do vote yes, I can feel good about what I'm telling community members when I'm defending my vote.
Thank you, Counselor. If I can jump in on that too. So from my standpoint, when we've been working with the developer to bring this forward, I do think there was the question about just, is it a good deal for the city financially? And looking at it, I do think genuinely it's a financially good deal for us in terms of the pay amounts, what we get over the 10 years versus what we get. But then there is just that conversation piece of, how does this relate to other projects? Is this something that has a unique case where we can justify it? And that, I think, is the tougher conversation. I'd say the same. I honestly couldn't have said coming into this how everyone would think on that. To the history of it, I do think it was largely, and I think there's some truth to this, of with how dense the downtown is, putting, I'll use the example of River Place also did the building, the Lincoln Savings Bank building. However, since it's all commercial, there was no parking required. So I think a lot of what I remember when we started these conversations was a conversation around, because of the level of parking required, parking spaces don't really pay rent. It was really saying, if we're going to take up this much space in the building to make it work feasibly, and I'm kind of speaking on behalf of what I think the developer pitched when they submitted this, was to make it work feasibly with the amount of parking required within our dense urban downtown that has pretty high property values and high valuations. This is the agreement they'd need. Now, it's like any business agreement. You never know what, is this the best agreement? Could we get a little more, a little less? I don't have the right or wrong answer on that. So I would say I just second that I think it's a good deal financially, but it's a good discussion on, just the community perception piece of it, but then how do we say, if we're doing this for just this project based on special circumstances like parking, making sure that we're all in agreement that that's why we're doing this.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
Just a comment. It's very few times, in my opinion, that I've seen a return on investment for the city as opposed to the other way around. This is basically the same agreement, except we're just financing it a different way. I have all the same concerns, and it could be, it's always possible that there's risks or something could happen, but one of the things that I've always pushed for is for us to be flexible and readjust our sails a little bit to maybe make things work. Not that that's the answer, but this not only puts an agreement in place that is different, but it puts a place that maybe this is an opportunity for the city moving forward to put together some more options that do return an investment for the city. Other than that, I pulled my hair out for 2 days looking at this agreement. I go, this is not reasonable. And then once you start dissecting it, to me, it looked like we've done with other things. It's like, well, let's see how this works out. I don't see any downside other than my attorney friend Aaron has pointed out, but I'm sure he knows more about that than I do. But that's just an opinion.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Councilor.
Unless.
Well, I say, Shane, did you have something?
I just wanted to add a comment. So I know our typical incentive is the rebate, and that's typically what many other cities do. There are other cities that have done what we're contemplating tonight, whether it's an upfront payment or a payment after the building's complete. So we've conferred with with Attorney Rogers, with our outside legal consultant, and all three of those are pretty typical. I did check with one community who has done basically a pretty much similar situation as what we have tonight, except they didn't even require a forgivable loan. They built the building, they gave them $600,000, and we're free and clear of it. So it's not something that we typically do here, but it is pretty common around the state. So we have had some, again, discussions on how to navigate the wording in this, and feel, at least from a legal standpoint, we've got other examples that we've used to help us along.
Question based on that, is that okay, Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor?
go ahead.
Were they secured or unsecured loans? This is an unsecured loan. So do they require mortgages in those instances, or letters of credit?
No. Okay. Actually, I believe it was just an economic development grant.
Okay.
That was payable once the building was complete.
Okay.
Thanks, Shane. Thank you, Councilor.
I would say the ones we looked at were mixed and matched. Some of them had bond requirements to make sure the building got built, so there was some security. But in the one instance I can recall, it was a pure out, build it, pay it, done.
Mm. Yeah, I think the one you mentioned, they paid up front before the building was built, but had the bond requirement.
There's one of each that we found. I would take issue a little bit with commonality. They're not common.
I just heard 2.
Yeah, we heard about maybe 3 or 4 total. Clearly, generally, the trend most of the time is our traditional method that we've used in the past. And I am not making a comment whether this is a good idea or a bad idea. It's lawful either way you go.
Thank you, Attorney Rogers. I will say that it's something in the amount in that 950,000. That's something we went back and forth on, because from the precedent standpoint, we did want to make sure, one, that obviously this helps the developer move forward, but we also wanted to make sure it's not a just sweetheart deal, that it's actually something that benefits the city. I know, just for context, there was a League of Cities presentation was at, I think it wasn't last year's, I think it was the year before that conference, where they specifically said one of the ways cities can provide the benefit without having just outlay money is that we can, in these types of situations, support a project at a lower borrowing rate for something like this in that short term than what would the normal borrowing costs would be. And it's a way for the city to help support a project without actually having to put money in. Now, again, that was just a presenter of the conference, so I won't say they're necessarily right or wrong, but it was something that we at least did some digging on to see what other places have done. And
So I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, so is the 4% a borrowing rate? Or tell me again how that's just a baseline as opposed to we're giving a 4% loan?
again, it is just it was used for calculation to make sure we're not just getting paid back what we got, but we're not actually. And that was where, to Shane's point, one of the other ones was just called a grant, because they basically had no minimum required payment.
But when you were saying that part of what, whatever talk you're at, they said that one of the things that cities can offer is money at a lower borrowing rate. That's why this reads like that.
Yeah.
And I understand that that's the appeal. And that was part of the concern I had about this. I know there are plenty of exceptions to, 2080, about us not competing with the private sector, but if I'm a bank out there, I'd be like, okay, now the city's giving 4% money, when you look at this. So that's why that triggered that.
Fair point.
Because that's why it's attractive, right? But it's also what gives you concerns, right? So,
Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
So I think something to consider in all of this, one is to see our previous presentation that we just saw, that growth is being encouraged in our downtown by the people that live, work, and play downtown. And so, I think we should be some of the biggest advocates of that, of private development, because that is what's going to push our downtown to grow. I think the other thing to think about is this building does not cost $950,000 to build. They still need a lot more money to build it, and so they're incurring their own risk in that as well. And they're incurring the risk in taking our money. And so, we are going to see, as a community, a direct return on this in a variety of ways, financially, but many other ways. We will have more people visiting our downtown. These are the spaces that the residents in these buildings are not huge. So hopefully those people will have visitors who will want to stay downtown. They'll eat downtown. I think, to go back to the parking conversation, I know that one of the things that the developer considered is, could we just have our existing parking be the parking for this building so we don't have to build, because they have a huge parking lot behind River Place that doesn't have a lot of people parking in it all the time. So we are the ones who are requiring them to have this one space per bedroom. So I think it makes sense that they came to us. Hey, you're requiring it. I think I could get people to buy or lease these spaces without offering them parking, but you're requiring it. So we have to take that into consideration as well. And I think, looking forward, if there are other asks of us, that's fine. Ask. We have the ability to turn it down. We can review every single ask, and we can turn them down if we don't think it's the right fit. I think that this building is the right fit. I think this will push our downtown forward. And so I'm looking forward to approving it and moving forward with that building. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other thoughts, conversation? Yep, Mr. Mayor.
Maybe I missed it in the presentation, so I don't know if this is a question probably for Jen. Where is this 950 coming from?
So we would cash flow it out of our TIF district, so we could pay for it out of our economic development fund. Then as the TIF, downtown TIF, we collect the increment, we would pay that, pay that back.
I know one of the question that a resident sent too was worrying, okay, will this upfront payment impact, that year's property tax rate? And just through that, that's why we have the economic development fund, is we can use some of those funds to make sure it doesn't impact our property tax rate in that year where we pay it, knowing we'll be getting additional revenue coming in year after year after that.
Answered my second question. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
Director Rodenbeck, what if TIF went away? That's always a topic of conversation. What if TIF went away? What would happen?
I don't know if I know the answer to that, other than, I guess when you think about it, if a TIF went away, we're only going to get, round numbers, a third of the payment from downtown, not all pieces, because we're only going to get the city portion, not school and county. So we would get less, I think is what you're saying. Now, I suppose the complication, I don't know if it's complication, it'd be is this agreement was supposed to kind of say that over the 10 years, we're going to get $950,000 plus interest. So I would think if we, over those 10 years, we don't collect $950,000 because the TIF went away and we're only getting a third, I would assume we would go back to the developer and say, you owe us this much money. Now, I'm not sure the developer agrees but that would be the hope, is that we're supposed to get the $950 plus 4%.
I would add, that was the intent in drafting. That's why we went back and forth for so many months, is trying to make sure, look, there's a risk on both sides if TIF goes away, right? And so the forgivable loan being paid, the proportion that hasn't been earned in TIF money by the city, that shortfall, it would be contemplated to be collected from the developer. And that's why we did it over, and it's not per year, it's over the 10-year period. If there's a shortfall at the end of the day, and TIF went away in that hypothetical, and the city didn't recover the amount stated in the DA, that would be the responsibility of the developer.
And then I appreciate the comment about, we could review and we could say no. I guess my concern is more that we may get asks, and are we going to be able to say yes? Because so far I haven't, I'm not saying this to be negative, but I haven't heard a reason as to, other than, wanting to support the downtown, which I want to support the downtown too. We do have incentives in place to support that. I guess what I'm getting at is, when people do ask, are we going to be able to say yes to everyone? Or how are we going to handle that?
And I will say there is a piece to this project that we are fortunate to have a great downtown with a lot of tax increment in that area. That doesn't mean we have that everywhere. So it is a specific situation. And also we have very little debt in our downtown. So we're at a point where we're fortunate we can look at doing something like this without any real strain on us to be able to provide it. And I would say that won't always be the case. So that would also be one of the argumentation if somebody came forward and we're not financially in that spot. I believe that would be something we could say back, is we don't have the financial capacity at this time to do a project like that, as we did at that time. But we are in a unique situation where we've got a really strong downtown development area with very little debt at this point. I think, Jim, we've got probably 1 to 2 years worth of debt in there currently with the new parking lot.
So we have about $2.5 million outstanding debt in the downtown TIF. That's about what it generates for revenue. But yes, it would not include yet the costs. We know we're going to try to do the parking lot downtown, or any of the other costs you would see on the CIP. Like, I want to say there's maybe 20 million on the CIP to be the downtown TIF, because it's not only the parking lot, but it's all the other rebate agreements we still have downtown that show up on the CIP. I'm trying to kind of think of the other big things that are on the CIP, but I know the parking lot and the rebate agreements are the big ones that we also have commitments to. Yep.
So, Mr. Mayor, and with Director Rodenbeck's comments, basically, there's two things going on here. One, like you say, we're fortunate that this is in the downtown district because the TIF has got the capacity. So if other people come and it's in a different part of town, that's a different discussion. And then two, how does that play? I mean, what are the chances of this, or, I mean, are we kicking another can down the road by using this TIF in this manner?
And so kind of, are we pushing off any other projects?
Yes, because, I mean, she mentioned there's other rebates and other things that are speaking for, you know, the 2.5 million it generates annually. The parking lot, I guess I don't know what other things you're referring to.
I had to try to think what was all on the CIP, but I know the parking lot was one of the big ones, and then I think there's like 9 million or so on the CIP that we still have obligated in other rebates downtown. I think, you know, I don't know if it's about pushing other projects back. I think what the concern might be back to Ms. Dunn's point, what if TIF goes away? We do have other obligations downtown from other rebates, so is that a risk? Yeah, I mean, that's a risk. That property tax and TIF can change, or right now we're saying 146,000 can be collected, but that could change what that amount is if property tax laws change significantly. That could change. So I see the risk not so much, Councilperson Nagel, about that we're pushing other projects back. I mean, for the most part, we can do a project, we get the revenue. We can do the project, we can get the revenue. So from a cash flow, we're pretty much able to do that downtown, which I think is the mayor was kind of saying. But I also understand things can change and don't know what those are. I see those being more of the risks would be if legislation changed and really through our property taxes, you know, that would be the downside, I guess.
But if TIF went away, this isn't the only problem that would create.
Correct.
I mean,
There are much
other
bigger
You are very much correct on that,
right?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Which thankfully, just for context, I know everyone that there has been discussions at the state level about changing the TIFs. The main thing being maybe getting rid of the unlimited no sunset clause TIFs. But I think just in the conversations we've had with our representatives, they would know you can't just end the TIF when there's outstanding debt. So they might change it to you can't have an unlimited one, but now they all have a 20-year sunset, and that goes into place. But there'd be plenty of time to. Now, I can't speak for the legislature, but. Any other thoughts, conversation? All right, otherwise, seeing none, requires a roll call vote, please.
Still on Pledge of Allegiance. You're voting for the pledge.
Tom really wanted to vote for the pledge again.
4 voting aye, 2 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. So that motion does pass. Again, thank you, everyone, for the conversation. This is a new development thing, so I appreciate everyone taking the time. And council members, new council members, Nagel and, what's your name? Fairbanks. I kept wanting to call you Craig, Chuck.
Everybody calls me Chuck.
And appreciate you guys also taking the time to ask questions ahead of time. So, all right, that moves us to item number 3, public hearing on the proposed plan, specifications, and estimate of costs for the 2026 alley reconstruction project. Do we have a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Second.
Motion seconded, and all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Madam Clerk, any written communications?
I have no written communications, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And then for staff comments, we've got David Wicki. Thank you, David.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. This public hearing hopefully won't take as long as the previous one, but this is for the 2026 alley reconstruction project. For this year's alleys, we are doing a total of 4 alleys, 3 of those concrete alleys, and one of them is a permeable alley. The work includes excavation, backfill, removal and replacement of approaches and driveways, sidewalks where needed, and curb and gutter. For the permeable paver alley, that will also include a subdrain installation and the placement of a storage and filter aggregate and interlocking clay brick pavers. The total estimate for this project is $438,571 to be funded by the stormwater funds and the street construction funds. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, David. Any clarifying questions from council at this time? All right, seeing none. Thank you, David. We will move to public comment. If there's anyone that would like to speak on this item this evening. All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing and look for a motion and resolution approving and adopting the plan, specifications, and estimate of cost for the 2026 alley reconstruction project.
Second.
Motion seconded. Any discussion from council? Seeing none, roll call vote, please. Thanks for keeping us on schedule, David.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion carries. Takes us to old business, item number 4, passed ordinance number 3139, providing that general property taxes levied and collected each year on all property located within the North Cedar Estates urban renewal area in the city of Cedar Falls, county of Black Hawk, state of Iowa, by and for the benefit of the state of Iowa, city of Cedar Falls, county of Black Hawk, Cedar Falls Community School District, and other taxing districts be paid to a special fund for payment of principal and interest on loans, monies advanced to an indebtedness, including bonds issued or to be issued, incurred by the city in connection with the North Cedar Estates urban renewal area upon its second consideration.
So moved.
Second.
Motion seconded. Thank you. Any discussion from council? All right, seeing none, any from the public? Also seeing none requires a roll call vote, please. Oh, gosh.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion carries. Takes the consent calendar. The following items will be acted upon by voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone requests otherwise. Are there any from council? Seeing none, any from the public? All right, I'll seeing none. I'll look for a motion to approve items 5 through 12 of the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Motion seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Takes to the resolution calendar. The following items will be acted upon by a roll call vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone requests otherwise. I'm going to pull item 14 quick. Are there any others from council? Seeing none, any from the public? Also seeing none, look for a motion to approve items 13 through 29 of the resolution calendar, excluding item 14.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Could I pull 20?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Sorry.
You're perfectly fine. So look for a motion to approve items 13 through 29 of the resolution calendar, excluding items 14 and 20.
So moved. Second.
Motion seconded, requires a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The motion carries. Item 14, look for a motion and resolution approving and adopting the FY 2027 City Council goals, work program, and financial plan.
So moved.
Second.
Motion seconded. I just quick pulled this. We had talked about also approving the strategic plan along with this. We decided to bring some of the work internal for this final version of the strategic plan. We just weren't quite happy with what we were getting from the consultant for the final portion of it. So we're going to finish that in-house. So rather than hold this up, we figured we would just get this on, just in case anyone was wondering why that wasn't included with this. So any questions, conversation from council on that? See none. Any from the public? All right, requires a roll call vote, please. Yours go through.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I want to assume first that
Yeah,
you know
that's
what you're
fair.
doing.
That's fair.
All right, item 20, resolution approving a College Hill neighborhood overlay district design review for modification to the exterior of a structure located at 7803 University Avenue. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second, and open for discussion. Councilor Fairbanks?
Mr. Mayor, after reviewing this, and this is maybe just a simple question, this seems like such a minor modification to the back of a house. Is it really necessary to go through this entire process to approve a window change?
It's actually because Stephanie really loves reviewing
She does?
window changes.
She likes that?
Or Karen does. I'm not sure who loves it more.
I can answer that question. Yes, unfortunately, that's one of the things with College Hill overlay that we're trying to fix with the new code is
Okay.
that because it's written in such a way that almost any change to the exterior of a building in that overlay has to go through P&Z and council, and I think a lot of people are frustrated with that, including staff.
So our hope is, I believe, with the new college zoning to
And of course, the homeowner as well.
Well, I was a contractor going through this one time. It's like, why do we have to go through this long process? Unfortunately, staff allowed me to bypass it because it was same for same. So thank you for that.
But, all right, any other council discussion, thoughts? And thank you for highlighting our work on the College Hill zoning rewrite. All right, seeing none, any conversation from the public? All right, also seeing none requires a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That takes us to item 30, allow bills and claims. We have a motion to allow bills and claims for February 2nd.
So moved.
Second.
Motion seconded. Any discussion from council? We got to work on this seconding,
Yeah, you
guys.
guys are
It's-
sleeping up here.
all right, any from the public?
So fast.
Seeing none, roll call vote, please. I'd like to recognize our representative from the College Hill Partnership in the room. Mr. Demlo, thank you for being here.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That takes us to council updates and announcements. Does anybody have any updates and/or announcements? All right, seeing none, we didn't have any referrals unless anyone has any pressing. If not, I will look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Barely.